We can just get going if you want.
Do you have anybody online?
Leave Nathan in the, yeah, or in the attendee. So,
I was gonna grab tacos, but I was running late. But I owe you guys. I'll definitely bring the next one.
All right, let's get started. Brady, begin. Randy Bowlerjack.
Hello.
Leland Dart.
Oh.
able to.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Thank you, Leland. Grant Harrington. Emily Hope. Emily Hope.
Not here yet.
Present. Sherry Ireton. Tom Norcott.
Here.
Sophia Pastor.
He is coming.
Online. Alan Rubio.
Here.
Mason Rutledge. Here. Liz Stenhouse.
Here.
Ellie Vasquez.
Here.
And Deb Williams.
Here.
Excellent. Only missing one. Noted.
John is also going to be absent.
John Trainer called it. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody get a chance to review those? Sent out. Actually, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anybody want to entertain a motion?
We approve the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes from the last meeting from Mr. Norcott. Second from Deb Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Approval of the agenda. The agenda that was sent out, I noticed a couple of tweaks to that we're going to do before we approve the agenda as stated. Article number 10 and 11 on the agenda, Article 4.2, we're not prepared to move forward for discussion today, although we'll move it to our next meeting, as well as number 11, Article 7.5. We do have on the packet was included a cover sheet for Article 4.8, a Parks and Rec Director spot. We're also going to move to the next
Okay.
meeting. We'll get to that. I think it's only appropriate that the library director, some of the director's positions that we're talking about that we put on the agenda, we kind of group them together and we talk about it. I think it's going to fall into the same article. So get to that, move forward. So with those changes, are there any others? Seeing none, I have motion to approve the agenda.
Second, motion.
Motion by Mr. Bojak. Second by Deb. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion pass. All right. Next, we're going to move on to our welcome from Council President Schwab.
Oh, okay.
That's you, sir.
All right, that is me. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I just want to start off and say thank you. Appreciate your time and effort in being part of this committee. It is very important. Looking forward to the process and the results. I'm hoping that there isn't a lot of things that we need to adjust or fix, but there, it's good to keep keep evaluating how we do things here in the city and how our processes work. So I think this is a fantastic team and I'm very grateful for it. Second part I would say is remember who is out there, who we represent in the city. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they go to work, they do their thing. They don't know what a charter review committee is. They don't know what a city council is hardly. They don't know what we do and how we do it. And, we're stewards. We represent them too. So it's really important that we keep that in mind. Those of us that want to be involved, and a lot of you here are pretty much in the know, change your perspective a little bit. But there's most of the people that we represent don't have those insights. So just keep that in mind as you guys make decisions. And the second part of that is I just encourage you to look at the long-term implications of all the changes that we propose, so that how important that is. The charter is going to outlast me for sure, maybe some of you, maybe all of us, right, at some point. And so just look at the long-term effects of the things that you propose. I guess that at that point, I'm good. If you guys have questions for me, that would be great.
Questions for the council president?
I do.
I'm good.
Do
Uh-oh.
you,
I'm in trouble now.
are there things, so we heard from some of the other council members, are there
Okay.
things that you would also like to have us look at while we look at the charter? And if so, have you sent those to Jennifer, or is that something that you're still thinking about?
Well, I'll just a couple of thoughts that I had about some of the things that would be good if you addressed. I think a couple of them already on your list that I see. It would be good to define the eligibility for a council member, and even a mayor if we need to do that. Any voted position that we have here in the city that we have authority over. I know we had, an experience there when we went districting. Districting, is that like an activity? We chose to go to districts and, maybe look at all of the eligibility, not just that one. Maybe it's our opportunity to make sure that the mayor and I guess we have a district judge. I know a lot of it's other state laws involved. I think that's would be a good focus to evaluate that, see if we need to do anything with that. I think I did see there the initiative process, although I do think it's very important that we give opportunities to have a citizen initiative. It seemed rather light on the requirements. Look at that, or whatever you guys come up with, will be good. Let me see. I know there's a couple of small things. I'm more of a big picture person. I mean, one of them was the council meetings. That's something that you wanted to reduce. We would make it work either way. It's a lot of meetings, which I'm fine with. I like meetings. I know that's old school, but I think, what are we at, 46? Is that the minimum is?
48.
48, yeah. I mean, something between 40 and that, I think, would be, just to give a little more leeway, some flexibility during the, especially when the sun's out here, in the Northwest, right? I mean, everyone, it's not just the council members. We're all dedicated to do whatever we need to do. But it's also the staff too, that we get to think about some important, that we don't overwhelm the staff at times. And then one thing I haven't really shared with anyone, and I don't know how germane it is to the charter, but if there is something we can evaluate, I'm just thinking long range. I mean, we're looking at annexations, we're looking at consolidating services, growing as a city. So if there's areas in the charter that we can define or simplify that process, of course, a lot of it is state law anyway, state rules, but there's something in the charter that we can assist in defining how we go through that process. Because we're looking at, long-term, we're looking at, a big section of our growth management area to the south of us. So if it isn't this group, at some point, I'm assuming that the city's will be in their best interest to look at annexation out there. So that would be my wild card thrown out there. So
You want to look at the eligibility position of elected officials?
yeah, I just don't think focus on the council. I know that kind of brought it up, but maybe there's other language that we need to examine for the other positions. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, President Swab. Appreciate you taking a few minutes and
Yeah,
coming up here.
appreciate that. Yeah, I'll
Hanging out with
do
us.
your business. Appreciate you spending your evening here.
Fantastic. Next item on the agenda is a community outreach.
Yeah, so looking at the dates, the best one, then the closest one, just due to the time frame, how quick the city was able to, do the flyers and stuff. The 26th was the closest and best location, was at the library. And we looked at it with transportation, time frame, also how the building, the vibe gave off to, we talked about not doing in too much of a city location, just so that people feel comfortable coming. So we landed on March 26th from 4:30 to 6:30.
The downtown library right here,
Evergreen.
Evergreen branch, South Everett.
set up by the old glacier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right next to the fire station. Perfect. So.
I know we talked about the hall on Evergreen Way too, like closer over there. So that was the other closest hall that was there available. We really tried to book with him, but he was asking for a couple thousands. So I told him that's realistically out of our budget.
Probably gonna find a couple hundred, but.
Use Fred Meyer.
Hey, it's a big lot. It's well located.
Just a question on that. Is there ability to streaming for that live? I think I'm in Squim, so this is probably a selfish question. Is that technology all available so that it can be recorded and streamed?
Yes,
Sweet.
That was an open question until now. Thank you very much.
we have some, the kind of like a off-brand, but they like the owl camera, the guy that stands up and will track the speaker. So we got one of those and we can do it.
Good. Yeah, we're working hard on that. So that's good information. So 3/26 is a regular meeting night for us. It's Thursday night. It's actually our next meeting, I believe. So it'll be out there. Obviously, as much participation as we can. I don't know if everybody can make it. I've already heard a couple of folks who won't be able to, but just let us know. And so we know what kind of crowd to expect. And in furtherance of keeping us with the same amount of meetings to do this kind of business, we would like to add a meeting for us to meet in place of the 26th, which will be on the 31st, which is the following Tuesday. Anybody have any objection to that or comments or problems with that? Put it on there. Do we need
Will
to
it be
vote
the
on
same
it?
time or?
Same
can it
time, 4 to
be done later?
6:30.
Could be.
Yeah.
This room is available if you wanted to talk about a later time,
Right.
but
Okay, so we will put that on the calendar and send out an invite on the 31st for us to have our meeting following the public input one, which I think we'll get a few things. The last item on public outreach, I just wanted to share that I did get one email from a District 1 neighbor of mine that had some feedback, and I forwarded it to Jennifer. And her feedback was that she would like to see us discuss electeds in our city holding only one position, not being elected to other positions, which I think we've already discussed it here. So we're getting some support on that. So I thought that was very positive, and it was great to hear because we're going down the right path on some of these things. So anybody else have received any input or feedback that they want to share?
Yes.
That's right.
I heard from Councilmember Bader, Councilmember Tui, and Brenda Stonecipher. And they provided their input and I provided it to Jennifer. So
Great. Fantastic. Thank you.
Should we be providing input we get to Jennifer, or do we all of it? We don't want all of it.
like, so for like purposes of public record, it'd be great to forward it to me.
Okay,
If there's items that you want me to like put on the tracker, the Excel file, I printed them out, maybe probably grab them. Or you want me to, like I did for some of the cover sheets, I added in like, someone said this about this item. If you want me to kind of incorporate it into those as we move forward, let me know if it's more just like, please, note this or forward this to all the commission, or just FYI, file it away. I think minimum is forward it so that it's in the city, on the city server, basically.
Okay, a lot of the feedback, a lot of the feedback I'm getting doesn't really apply to our work.
Right.
Even though I send them the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
They want to know why the bathrooms aren't open or why there's crime on the streets.
Well, and also if there's input that, the mayor's office would love to respond to folks if they have those kind of questions too, or to like assist them connecting with the right people too. We can take it as like we would any other public.
are these meetings being put on the Everett, like the city of Everett social media page saying, hey, we are having this? Because the public is allowed here. Are we posting about these meetings and stuff on that page?
We just like tied up a question about like who has access to post things and all that. So we are putting them on like your website, and we have an agenda center that has public meetings listed. I don't know that we posted them on social media, but we will be posting the public hearing, and I can ask communications to sort of put something out about your second and fourth regular meetings.
We have provided notice to the Herald, so
Yeah.
it's on social media, but all kinds of
I've heard more than one person say they watched our meetings after the fact, so I know they're posted somewhere.
We do post them on YouTube after the meeting.
Sweet.
Yeah,
If we have to.
You're all-
Get our likes up.
YouTube stars. And from that viewpoint.
Gotta remember the right outfit now.
Great, no other,
Tom has had his out for a while.
sorry, go ahead, Tom.
So do we have a budget for our effort here?
No, there isn't there's not a set aside amount, but I can bring back requests.
Okay.
So,
And I did get some feedback from one of my neighbors about the district, so and this is just the gist of what his feedback was, that he would like to see us voting on all the districts, kind of like what they do at the Port of Everett. And instead of just voting for the people that are in our district. So that's feedback.
I did add on the tracker, there's like a few flavors of that. I think we'll get that scheduled at a future meeting, but the 5 districts or a different number, vote on the districts within the district at the primary, citywide at the general, no districts at all. So I think there's some conversation.
Sounds like some education more than just
bubbling around.
changing anything, yeah, because I think you do vote on everything except for your whoever your representative is. Yeah.
No, you don't, I didn't vote in the District 2 because I live that direction.
Right.
So one of the ideas is in that race or in committee member Rubio's race. So Urbano and Rubio were in the primary. You could change it so that after the primary, everybody in the city votes on whoever makes it to the general.
I see what you're saying.
Actually, I guess there's sort of there's 3 kind of, although it's complicated. Imagine there were still 3. The 2 that make it through to the general could be voted on citywide. But to keep us on track
It's on track.
for another night.
I don't know who was first.
But it's definitely out and about.
Just a logistical question. Is it possible to get, because I'm going to be hitting some of the more denser neighborhoods up in the northeast part of town, is it possible to get printed copies in both English and Spanish of the town hall, the community event?
Public hearing.
Oh, the flyer?
Yeah,
Um,
because no, I don't have a printer at home. That's what you're wondering.
yes. When this meeting ends, I'm leaving to go to the airport, so I won't be printing them, but I can talk to the team and get them
I
printed.
can come by.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem, but
Is that what you're, what it's gonna
That, or
be?
there's the other one that you have is maybe the one that you'd wanna print.
That one?
Yeah, and we could print that postcardy kind of stuff.
that's all I
Yeah.
need. Because I need to leave it print for Friday, so thank you.
Again, one more procedural question. Back to the email and I did set up a separate email just for this communication.
Mhm.
Still, I'm trying to keep work from you. Do you still want it to forward to me? Because I do have now a public record because it's a separate email address.
Oh, but
yes, we want you to still forward.
Still forwarding. Okay.
We want you to have nothing unique.
it's really,
Well, these will be unique because it'll say things like, Mason, you're awesome. So glad you're doing this. Thanks for doing it. Slow down the speeders on my road.
if you forward everything to me and you can just dump it in my inbox, I'm cool with it. I love archiving emails, my favorite activity. Then when we get, if and when we were to get records requests, you can say, I don't have to do anything. Everything's been forwarded
Got it.
versus,
And I go through.
let me get back to you. I gotta dig through, or I gotta send you them all now. You don't, it's easier to just, yeah. And then Ashley has a lot more to do after that. So.
Okay, Liz?
Yes. Can you just let us know where and when we can pick up some flyers? Because I know I'm going to a couple of neighborhood meetings next week and I'd love to be able to hand some out also. Thank you.
We also have our library where if we have, Everett Library gives you $4 of printing every week, and then Snohomish, Snow gives you $7.
I know the Evergreen branch also lets you print 30 pages for free, per week too.
if it's urgent, because it sounds like you're heading out on vacation.
It's one day of vacation. And then the weekend, that's vacation. I won't be back until basically to do any real work until Thursday. So I'm not a good resource for the printing, but I'm gonna email a team of people and they are gonna get you what you need.
Yeah, more Mason.
Negative, sorry.
Okay. All right. Moving on to number 6, Article 11.2. Our discussion we had on this was last meeting, if you recall, and I see that Mr. Rammerman is here with some valuable information for us, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, obviously, I was here last week, so I'm not sure how much you guys got into this, but I think that the issues that we've identified with the petition process, it's kind of 3 issues. The biggest one is dealing with threshold issue. Currently, how it works is if somebody can get 15% of the signatures from the last municipal election, then on the petition, then the city council has to take a position on it, either approve it, or if they reject it, then it gets sent to the county to put on the next ballot. But then we have this, the second option, which is only requires 5% of the voters in the last municipal election. And in that case, the council doesn't have to weigh in on it. They just have to send it over to the county and then it gets put on to the ballot. And this 5% we found out in the, 2 years ago when we had the minimum wage in the watershed initiative, it's, ended up being less than 1,000 signatures. So it's very low. Looking at other cities, other charter cities, Seattle and Tacoma are at 10, and then it goes up from there. Vancouver's 15, Yakima, Richland, Bremerton, Bellingham are at 20, and Aberdeen's at 25%. So this 5% is lower than anywhere. And so we would ask that that be looked at. I think again, you want to have an initiative process, you want to have a way for the public to, use this direct legislation, but you want it to be a significant enough threshold of support, which is what this threshold does. And so we would think that, either, obviously you guys can recommend what you want. I think.
Well, and just to help, 2 weeks ago, they kind of, not everybody, but we sort of settled on how about 10%?
Okay. And then the second issue with the threshold is 10% of what? And so it could be, there's a variety of different ways. You could have 10% of, the last presidential election, which would be the largest number of voters, so that would make it higher. You could do the last federal election, you could do the last municipal election. Well, one of the things that we've seen that some cities have is the last 10% of the number of votes for the mayor. So that we're, again, because otherwise if it's just last municipal election, there's some level of ambiguity in what exactly does that mean, because not everybody votes on everything. So I think keying it to the mayor at least would provide clarity. So 10% of the votes for the last mayoral election. That way we're getting the mayoral election obviously is going to have a higher than municipal elections that are not on a mayoral year, but it's not as high as federal or not as high as the presidential. So it's not, but those are the, so those are the issues of the threshold, the 10% and then 10% of what we would need to do. So that's the first issue that, you guys have already been looking at. A couple other things that I think that, are worth considering. These deal with the timing and procedures of how these are processed. Right now, it's a very vague process in the charter. If you compare that to state law, how it works. So in here in the charter, basically somebody shows up and they say, hey, here's a petition I have, and here are all my signatures. And that's the first time the city really deals with it. Whereas under state law, what happens is you put together a proposed initiative, you submit it to the Secretary of State. Secretary of State looks at it and will review it and may say, hey, this isn't a valid topic for initiative, or otherwise will be responsible for drafting the actual question that the voters vote on. And then they go out and gather signatures for it. this puts, has a, like last time, you may have seen the questions that we had to draft for the initiatives with, the two minimum wage ones, and, they were nearly identical, but we had to try and figure it out. I think that having more control over how that's drafted before people sign it would make sense. But what I would recommend on dealing with that and other procedures would be to, if the charter authorized the city council to adopt procedures for processing it. And that's what happens in most cities that aren't charter cities, is it's just through an ordinance. And looking at examples, the Bellevue and Walla Walla both have fairly robust procedures that generally mirror what's happening in the state. So it would be submitted to the city clerk, who give it to the city attorney to make sure it's a proper subject initiative and to draft the question, and then they go out and get the signatures for it. And this also could deal with timing, because the other issue we had last time was trying to figure out what are the rules for when an initiative has to be submitted. And currently the charter doesn't give much guidance, but the county has some requirements, but we wanted to build in a little buffer time so we could process it. So the clerk had recommended something, but it wasn't anything we could enforce. And so we ended up having the watershed initiative was submitted. The signatures were certified by the county, and there weren't enough. And so we told the watershed, they said, well, we'll go out and get some more. And we didn't have anything that could control the process at all. And they were able to do that. And they had to get like another 50 signatures or something. But it would be nice to have the authority to adopt some clear guidelines that would be obviously published ahead of time. So anybody wanting to submit an initiative would know that. But again, I think that I think delegating it to city council as opposed to this group trying to have, put it all in the charter, I think would reflect what we've seen in other cities and allow for a more robust legislative process on what those are. But those are the type of things that I think would be useful, is to have this kind of the pre-screening of initiatives and drafting of the question before the signatures are gathered, so the public knows what it wants. Then the third thing is that we've seen with a couple cities that I thought could be useful is to require the city to put out a fiscal impact of an initiative. Because again, if the voters are going to be voting on something, they should have an idea of how much it's going to cost. And we see with like the minimum wage ordinance, we had all this nice language about maybe the city could do certain levels of enforcement. So I think the public may have thought the city was going to, have a robust enforcement thing, but it didn't actually mandate it, and that would be really expensive. Voters should know, if you really want to have a robust enforcement of this initiative, it's going to cost, a certain amount of money. And so that's something that would be prepared. It would be prepared before the people, when the voter, it would be, included as part of the voter's pamphlet, or at least produced at that time. I don't know if the county would actually include it in the voter's pamphlet, but, timing on that. So, consider recommending that the charter, basically, adopt with your threshold 10% of what, delegate to the council to adopt specific procedures addressing issues, including the timing, and then, the fiscal, if you think the fiscal impact require that as well. Yes.
Is the language for, I guess we should call it changes, is that something that we have to draft the language, or are you going to draft the language and then let us look at it, or how does that work?
What I would think would happen is that you guys kind of give some general parameters, then I'd come back with the actual proposed language. And then you guys can, see what you think of it, and we can have some back and forth on there. But yeah, I would anticipate me drafting it. I just need to have an idea of what y'all want me to draft before I didn't want to just come with a bunch of different proposals, because you may not like any of them.
Deb?
So Ramsey, so 11.2 is what we're talking about, right? And C seems pretty clear about the 15% petition. So you're looking at D, just section D in the initiative about less than 50, I'm trying to understand, less than 15% petition, if such petition is signed by qualified electors in number at least equal to 5%, less than 15% of the total number of votes cast at the last preceding general election, and the proposed ordinance is not passed by council without alteration before the printing of the ballot, including absentee ballots for the approaching regular municipal election, it should be submitted to a popular vote at such election. That's the language you want us to look at, just D, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you guys want. If you guys want 10% just across the board, I would be recommending completely excise, getting rid of D and then reworking C to do the 15% and then 15% of what and defining that and then delegating the authority. So it would edit out much of C because the timing issue has been superseded by statute. Right now, it says you have to do it within 45 days or 60 days and maybe call a special election. But under state law, it just is the next general election. We can't, that overrides the charter as it is anyway. So, but yeah.
Cool.
Anybody else with feedback? If I recall from our conversations, I think we did most of this work at our last meeting and got to some decision points that we just need to get them to Ramsey to start doing that work. Do we feel comfortable with the 10% that we decided on last meeting? I think that we did vote on that.
Yes.
And then, so we just need to come up with what, as he had mentioned, mayoral election, general election, presidential election, municipal election. What are we going to do? And then do we want to ask city staff to include something along the lines of authorizing council to develop procedures and then requiring a fiscal impact is what I think are the two other things that I heard. Is that correct?
Yep.
Anybody have any suggestions or comments to that effect for those?
I have a suggestion.
Or do you think we've covered them? Go ahead, Deb.
I would suggest that we, I don't know if we need to make a motion or if we do, then I would move that we authorize city staff to come back with language to basically remove paragraph D from 11.2 and to expand on section C of 11.2, authorizing council to provide any language they need to adopt those procedures. And whether or not include the fiscal impact statement, I'm open to that, whether you guys want that in there or not. But that would be my motion.
So Des made a motion. Anybody want a second before we discuss?
Question about the motion. Should those be separate motions or is it okay to do it all as one?
No, it would be one motion on this, basically following his directive or his guidance.
But are we adding or not adding the fiscal?
That's
well, the fiscal impact statement. I hear where you're coming from that, but I would, somebody has to second it. You have.
Yeah, can we get a second before you discuss?
Oh, sorry. I'll second it.
Okay.
Sure.
So I got a second discussion. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I would be leery on the fiscal impact statement. Why I understand completely where you're coming from. I think it would be difficult to have somebody out in the community if they brought forward some language to try to understand what that fiscal impact would be and to prepare that fiscal impact statement, or if it would be the city. But what if that person in the community that brought that forward didn't feel comfortable with city staff preparing that fiscal impact statement? So that's the only concern I have about that one piece of language.
More discussion, right?
But I'm open.
Oh, I'll just add to that. At the state level, there is a lot of discussion about whether it's around proposed legislation. We call them fiscal notes that offices and agencies submit. And there are often legislators who don't agree with how much we say it will cost. Similarly, for initiatives, I imagine actually the millionaire tax conversation will come up eventually as an initiative. And that is something that the Attorney General's office will plug information onto ballots. And I bet that there will be plenty of fighting over what that fiscal impact kind of looks like. It is an area, it's good information to have in theory. It's just who trusts what piece of information from any particular source. So it's definitely a hairy issue to get into on top of, just the threshold conversation. So I guess I would be, I think where Deb is going, that, yeah, this probably isn't the moment for that. After, let's do incremental change.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry. I just think I agree with Deb. I think fiscal impact statement, it leaves from both sides the opportunity for abuse of it. If our government, somebody on the government side's like, we really don't want this, they could make it look as expensive as they want to. And, and then there's the other side where, a lot of people put initiatives out there and they don't have a clue what it costs. And so I think that, we should leave off that portion of it. And, maybe they could look into it in 10 years from now.
I just provide one other example of where this would have been really helpful for everybody remembers the, initiatives to build the monorail. And that's a perfect example of something where the people, let's have a monorail. That sounds good. They had no idea how much it was going to cost. The city of Seattle ended up spending, something like $50 million on law firms throughout that process and finally realized, okay, this is just not buildable. And, the whole thing goes away. And I think that's the risk with the initiative process. I also think that, yes, things can be politicized. I think municipal government is far less politicized than state government and is nonpartisan. And, we have to trust the city to figure out a lot of stuff. If, you can't say that you're not going to have some council or mayor that may want to politicize it more, but, I think having no process for the public to understand what a cost is could be more detrimental than, the risk that it may be politicized in a particular case or not. And it's, it's a big responsibility for the voters to enact direct legislation, and without any I think that having a good process for the costs, it could be a nonpartisan. You could have a nonpartisan. It still gets politicized, I know, at the state level, but the theory is that you could do it in a way that's not partisan and have the voters get that information. But again, you guys, that's my pitch for it, and I'll let you.
Sherry, the next person.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Deb and Randy and Grant, but from a city staff perspective, I would also not be in favor of trying to push this forward because I think it's putting an incredible amount of when we deal with legislation and policy stuff all the time that comes from the public, we are left to interpret that. And that's a really difficult place to be. It's not even that it's political. It's just that you're trying to understand what's in the mind of the public. I don't think it's the right time. I think just shaving down the initiative piece so it's cleaner, that's what I'm looking for. So just from the staff perspective, I would not be in favor of trying to do that right now.
Yeah, I'm in line with Mr. Attorney here, just because, Mr. Ramsey, sorry. I just think that when you are voters, unfortunately, it's hard to get information when you are voting on something. There's the voters pamphlets, there's information out there, but usually you have to really dig, and otherwise it's up to interpretation. So you could still have, without any sort of guidelines on what a fiscal impact report would look like, you could have the side for it and against it, each putting out different numbers. What if we were to do something a little bit more in the middle where you have a fiscal impact done and it's proposed, and then as with the ballot, you have pros and cons that speak to it. And they could then make their point. They say, oh, well, they've clearly inflated these numbers. Here's why we think that. Or more description into where these numbers came from and over what period are we looking at, where are these costs coming from. I think if there's enough transparency in how that fiscal impact report is put together, then it can bring clarity to the final numbers. That's my thought. And I think it does bring value to the voters to understand, because yeah, I mean, people don't know what it's going to cost for enforcement or what the cost is going to be to businesses or how that's going to play out in the long term. And you have to have some sort of guideline there.
Thanks. Brady?
Yeah, I would also support a fiscal note. I think one of the challenges with the initiative process and just direct democracy in general, if you want to refer to it as such, is that you're not really having a structured debate in the same way a city council is going to when they're considering legislation. There is no staff report, there's no staff analysis, there's no budgetary analysis. It's just campaigning. And so while I don't think we want to necessarily put a chill on the people's ability to have that initiative process, I do think there needs to be some more structure to it, so that we are allowing that conversation to be a little more well-considered or balanced.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm with you on, you know, as a voter, I'd like to be as well informed as possible when I'm voting on something, and whether there's a, you know, a sense of skepticism or, you know, about what the numbers are. I'd rather have something that I can, I guess, believe that there's a spectrum between the worst case or the best case, so that I got a range of impact for the statement. How that gets calculated, I don't know. I mean, that's where the rubber hits the road, and I don't know if you can add methodology for calculation to, you know, the way it's calculated to or not, or whether that just makes it way more complicated.
One thing you could do is in the delegation to the city council, have them adopt, you know, nonpartisan, whatever, ways of calculating the fiscal impact or something like that. Delegate them to get the more specifics of how it's done, with some broad guidance of avoiding partisanship.
Deb?
That actually was kind of what I was thinking, was that if you give council the authority to put together the guidelines in which to do that, there could be some language in there to what they could ask, not a physical impact statement, because maybe that's the semantics that's getting into it. People thinking of physical impact, thinking, you know, to the dollar what your, you know, what this activity or project would cost. So maybe something in that guidelines, the council procedure guidelines, to use some kind of language to give us an idea of what something would cost, such as plastic bags or, you know, changing the, you know, whatever, especially since we are raising the threshold, we're still giving them the ability to do something. So I think there's still that protection there. So maybe something like that instead of looking for a fiscal impact statement.
Randy?
As a question to Mr. Remerthorn, the fiscal impact statement, however we define that, where would that actually go? Where would voters and the public go to see that, or what are kind of the options that we would have at our disposal about where that gets placed, whether it's on the ballot or in a pro-con statement, or is just, you know, something that's put on a website that the public can find?
Well, under the state, for state initiatives, it's put in the voters pamphlet. I would have to look to see if the county would allow a city to include a fiscal impact in the voters pamphlet. Certainly you know, it would be, you know, we'd make it available through the website, whatever, promoting that information. If it could be in the voters pamphlet, that would be ideal, and I just don't know. State law would, if the county, because the county has its own rules on the voter pamphlet that really kind of.
Yes, and I'd love to follow up on that, because I think it's relevant to kind of the directions that we're going in this conversation.
Grant?
Yeah, just since I guess I want to try and move forward to other things, other topics, because it seems like we're now going a meeting and a half on this one thing, which wasn't even presented or brought to by us. So I'd like to figure out some way to move to another topic of some sort. As you know, as it pertains to the fiscal policy statement, it's what you're at from a business perspective. So outside of, I'm not a policy wonk, you know, that's part of the reason that they want me here in this room, is because if I want to try to bring an initiative if I want to try and bring it, one, it's going to limit who's going to bring an initiative to. Like, that's just gonna become a, like, you know, certain people, like, they have great initiatives, but like some initiatives are more policy and structure, some are more fiscal and structure. Like there's just so many different initiatives that could come to the plate, and to ask to put a boiling point like P&L together for God knows what is like impossible. So all it's going to do is limit the amount of initiatives or public engagement that we may get. And so like, and quite candidly, like, yeah, I mean, I'd love to know the ins and outs. I would have loved to have known $40 million extra was going to be for the baseball stadium, you know, but that didn't seem to come to fruition. So like, I think there's like, yeah, in all, we'd love to know the cost of everything, like right off the bat, and we'd love to know those things. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's feasible. And I think that's all it's going to do is keep people from wanting to, they're going to go see, oh, here's all of the things you have to do to get an initiative for this thing you believe heavily in. And they're just going to be like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And so, yeah, you know, I agree with you, Emily. I do. I would love to know everything and every penny of everything I'm voting on. I just don't know if it's feasible.
Okay, we're gonna take one more from Jerry, and I agree, we need to move
I'm
on.
gonna say that this is a great topic for the parking lot.
Yeah.
So if we could put the fiscal.
Well, we have a motion.
I
on the
understand
table.
that, but I'm just saying, when we get through the motion, and I would love it if someone could restate the motion, since we've had so much
I
discussion.
can restate the motion that I made.
Go ahead.
The motion that I made was doing away with paragraph E, or C, excuse me, and to rewrite the language in paragraph C that you would provide, that council would provide the procedural questions going forward with initiative, and it would be at the 10%. Second.
Any other discussion or?
Just clarification with that motion, because you didn't touch on the preceding election or what the 10% of what. Currently, so would your motion keep it at the previous general election municipal versus changing it to something else? Okay.
Yes.
General election municipal.
Municipal general election.
So just the existing language. Instead of saying like the last mayor's race, it's just the last time there was an election, like for city issues at the general election, last general election.
I don't know. I personally, I'd like to say like either the mayor or the presidential one.
To help you move things forward, do you want to make an amendment?
No.
Okay.
I will make I would offer an amendment. That you can do with it what you want. That it's from the votes cast for the office of mayor at the last city general election. 10%. I like that.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Okay, so a motion and amendment on the floor. Let's vote on the amendment first. Those in favor of adding. Please. For our note taker more than anybody, but yes, go ahead.
Change it to 10% of the votes cast for the office of mayor at the last city general election.
Those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Amendments passed. So the motion is 10% of the last mayoral election. Excuse me, we're asking the city attorney to come back with proposed language that's going to restate 11.2 under what David talked about, and we'll look at it then. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to Article 2.2, eligibility to hold office.
Thanks for your help.
There was a cover sheet in our agenda that was sent around to everybody. Hopefully you got a chance to review that to make the conversation a little bit more brief, maybe. Who knows? This is meaty stuff. We got to get through it.
Yeah, so I included the language that Member Rubio, Fuller Jack, and then also Council Vice President Ryan had submitted regarding that section. They're all a little bit different. So they're all in there. Just so one difference that's there is, I think at least Commissioner Rubio suggested that, residency for a year before the date of the election. Ryan suggested less than that to allow for newer voters to be eligible for office. So that was one piece of it. And then I think there were others that have kind of like, is 6 months sufficient or is a year sufficient? Yeah, I don't know. That's what's in the cover sheet. I think Rubio and Fuller Jack could speak to their.
So procedurally, are we going to make a recommendation for somebody to create a new language for us to vote on? Or are we creating the language ourselves?
I think we should make Ramsey create it.
I agree. And I drafted some, I agree. Have an attorney do it.
I agree.
We never get through everything.
In
We're trying
all,
to draft stuff.
this is what I would recommend is like, talk about kind of the key pieces that you want to refine.
Right.
And then I'll just ask Ramsey to like deliver the.
Is it possible that when he comes back the next
written-
time that he has a proposal and not come back and ask?
It is. I had originally asked him to come on the 26th, but then we scheduled a
Oh,
public
we
hearing.
bunched
So I
them.
was like,
Okay.
hey, can
Gotcha.
you make it next week? And so.
Very good.
But we can make sure to schedule it when we can have like just piece of paper to review in advance in the packet and all that. So.
And I can let you guys know that the 26th even though it's public hearing, but you guys are making up that next one on the
31st.
Him and I have depositions that day, so he won't be able to do that one, but potentially, but
On the
do
31st,
the
he has
April 9th one.
depositions.
We both do, yeah. So.
Since Rubio's first up, you want to tell us your ideas?
Yeah, well,
What you want to see?
someone who, was in the District 4 race to council, you guys will imagine I have some opinions on this topic. Well, like I probably mentioned to you guys share with you packets. I know it might be a different topic later, but to be honest, the first thing and paramount problem during that time was not having a designated official who to go to. Like who's supposed to make these decisions and validate this or not. Like Councilmember Lewis and I, we were going, to different public officials. And I'm gonna say it, everybody was just passing the hat ball around. Nobody wanted to touch it. And I don't blame them, because there was no wording on who's supposed to make decisions on this. So, first thing would be having someone with the power and authority to say, hey, you don't meet the requirements, you can be in the election. There has to be someone with that responsibility and that power. The current charter doesn't do it. And the second thing will be the 6 months clause. The whole point of having an elected official from a district is, have someone from that community who, lives that community and therefore can speak on behalf of that community. I don't think you're doing that after 6 months in that community. So the 6 months clause doesn't add anything to representation. It literally, and I'm gonna say it literally just opens the door, and I think Randy, you hit the nail with your proposal. It just opens the door for, opportunism, political games. I don't like this guy, let's have someone move there, and endorse that other person. And, it doesn't add anything good and it just creates problems. And that's literally what was attempted in District 4. Someone who didn't even reside in the city, might have been elected as a representative for the district. Yeah, that would have been crazy. So, those are the issues and the stuff we dealt with. So I would say, if you don't live in the community for 1 year, how can you represent it? And I'm being nice, a year is not enough time anyway. You haven't even voted for a candidate in this district and you can already become that candidate yourself. But I'm not gonna say let's raise it to 4 years. That would be too much. But at least 1 year. The 6 months only opens the door for, I'm gonna say it, political games. That's my 2 cents on that.
All right, we have Lee Dart online. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, just to also with regard to residency and determining residency, should there be some language in here on who determines residency? And we have that language there. Should it be that they get mail at address within the city limits in 1 year? Are there any guardrails we should put up to avoid a little bit what happened in the last election?
Yeah, that's kind of part of what Mr. Rubio talked about as well. Who's going to enforce that and what are the standards? So thank you for that. Mason?
Yeah, where are you addressing, who addresses it in your proposal? I don't see that here. Or did,
Also, I just mentioned that as like, what official will be that person? I bring up that, as to decide who will be that official. I would suggest city clerk or city attorney.
do we have that discussion with the staff, figure that out and tell us?
So last year, one way that we attempted to handle that, attorney's office sent a letter to all of the candidates for office and asked them to like sign and certify that they had met the requirements of the charter. We didn't, we were kind of trying to like problem solve in the moment. So I don't know if that's like the whole system that they would recommend, but so there was an attempt to do that, maybe through the, like, I could, I think the rest of the team could decide like, is the clerk the right one or the attorney's office?
The judge like decided last time.
Yeah, without clarification, it goes through the court system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grant?
Good.
I actually had a question. So when it talks about like, when you talk about like residency, that is for that specific district. So if somebody decides up in the middle of like a period of time, decides, hey, I want to move, I want to like sell my house and move from, a mile away, and they go, just so happen to go from District 1 to District 2, they're immediately can't go to District 2. They can't run for District 2. They got to be in District 2 for a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's a really big difference between somebody that is moving from outside of the city into the city versus somebody that's like for example, like they're keeping their kid in the same school district, but they're moving from one district to another district. There's a pretty substantial difference between those two. And this is more of a question for everybody here. Would it make it, so I'm all about simplification though. I don't like making things more complicated. However, should we look at it or could we look at it differently of somebody that's moving internally within the city versus somebody that's moving from outside of the city into the city?
I think, Grant, I think you got a great point there. I think that's actually a little bit of when we talk later about district votes and then having citywide votes at the general election, because there's some of those same kind of dynamics that go on there. But the two questions I have, well, first of all, a year is a good length because in the state of Washington, you can't sign a lease for more than a year without making it kind of difficult. So if you got a lease, and I'm thinking lease instead of owner, but you're going to be here, you've been here at least a year, probably more. 6 months, you get a whole different person as far as commitment to a community. We want to be careful on addresses because there are physical addresses available in the city that are not your address where you live. So that's not a great answer, just as a side point. And then Council Vice President Ryan says that restricting a full year of voter registration would effectively bar individuals from running for office. I don't understand what she's saying there. Of course, I mean,
she's saying like under.
You're 18.
Yeah. There's just, I think 19 is missing.
So if it's like residency versus a registered voter, if you're 18 years old and, you turn 18 in October and you want to run for office, but you've lived here your whole life, well, you couldn't because you haven't been a registered voter for the year.
Emily has her.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of what you were saying. So I would say City of Everett residents for a year, but within your district, and maybe we have a separate cutoff. And now we're adding complexity, but I think I think about there's a lot when you're a renter versus an owner in how you move around, because I think about rent increases and changes and job changes and your school and your kid, all of that affects. So if you have stay within the city for let's say a year, but within, and we can talk about nitty gritty later, but then your district is a set different number of criteria.
And then if like somebody moves from one district to let's say they win.
Right, and then they
move. And then I'm stuck in that district, like I can't move for 4 years. you know, and then what happens if like I'm forced to move? Like.
You vacate your office.
You have to vacate your office.
Yeah, so if I'm forced to move by things outside of my power, I'm forced to vacate my office. So
Okay, get the other questions. Lead Art online, go ahead.
You unmuted and muted. Wait.
So
there you go.
You know, with regards to that, there is some responsibility on the part of the candidate or potential candidate to understand what the requirements are to participate in this system. And if it's a district election, that is for that district, and it's only voted for by the people in that district. And I think if it's a district election, that should be the standard. Also, with regard to that, there are people in this last election who had talked to a couple of times who were trying to decide, should I move into another district because the voter turnout there is so low, I got a really good chance. I think there's an opportunity to play some games that we could restrict and keep things simple. The district is the district.
Great. Randy?
I'm not gonna say it better than Lee's, so there we go.
Yeah, that knocked a couple of them out. Tom?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why you want to have two different methodologies or timelines. Why we wouldn't stick with one.
I think we are talking about that. 1 year for across all candidates.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Ready?
Yeah, I think I'm naturally inclined to agree with a lot of where the conversation is going. The challenge I do have is those folks, and who knows how many of them there are in the future, but the folks who might be moving districts, but moving districts means, as Grant alluded to earlier, moving a mile away or across the street. One thing I wanted to observe that I didn't think was mentioned was that it's 6 months prior to the primary, not the general election. So our primaries are usually in May. Right?
August,
sorry. I've never voted before, I guess. That's a lot. So it's not 6 months before the general election, which I believe it's a year before the general election, and that's 6 months before the primary. So that might be one way of looking at it, is maybe it's a year, but maybe we also just tweak it. So that's a year before the general election based off of when our primaries are.
Great discussion. We'll take one more from Grant, and if anybody wants to, I'll entertain a motion from everybody if we want to do that. Go ahead, Grant.
You know, generally I agree with, back to, I think that person that Alan talks about, that where people go to for like a final decision on things and kind of giving them maybe a little bit more authority. So let's say it's, we might be able to put verbiage, and again, please give me feedback. We might be able to put, verbiage in there. Here's the rules, but if you get an exception from this person because of, 2 blocks or something to that extent, then it might leave, be able to give like some people, a little bit of leeway there. That's just kind of, I agree it needs to be more difficult. I do. And I agree with the 1 year period. It's like, once you get down to districts, it's just such a small area for some of these districts. And, I think that, maybe leaving a little bit of leeway, might figuring out a way to leave a little bit of leeway for it might help. We need community engagement. We need more people that want to be a part of the processes. And as you can see here, we have a whole lot of people from District 1 that are willing to be engaged, willing to be in the process, willing to be a part of it. Other districts in the area, we don't have as many people that are willing to be part of the process, that are willing to be engaged, willing to be into it. So I would like to be able to try to come up with ways to not completely limit it, but still make sure it's not like there's not like a whole bunch of like what happened, and you look just down the road to City of Linwood also. So we want to learn from those things, but I think if we can, give that person some gray area there a little bit, if somebody wants to move, the other part is like, I mean, you get into like areas like Casino Road, so like a big portion of Casino Road, right? They're a very valuable part of our community, but they're technically not city of Everett. So nobody from Casino Road right now on the east side of 99 can run for any district council. So they have, am I correct on that? Where's
I think it's Airport Road.
No.
is it Airport Road?
Airport
Airport,
Road,
yeah.
where Home Depot is,
Yeah.
that's where it goes into unincorporated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I getting screwed up because
They're
think
different
of school
districts, but they're all in.
Fourth and 128, yeah.
Yeah, I
Kinda
just
goes
wanna,
out.
I wanna make sure that we, like, we don't overly limit, like that too much. I wanna make sure that more, everybody that is halfway legitimate, that really cares for our community and wants to be a part of our community and wants to, this is supposed to be a civil service, right? Like, I don't wanna be turning down too many people who want to be doing civil service.
I'm kind of with Mason, so, I mean, I don't think asking for a full year is, asking for a bucket of blood personally. And I'm just more in favor of keeping it simple and just not having two different tiers. And I'm just kind of repeating myself, so that's.
And I won't repeat Lee again, because Lee said it very well, and I agree with that. There's another piece of this beyond the 1 year from Councilmember Ryan's proposal that I really appreciated, maintaining full-time residency and explicitly prohibiting snowbird residency or part-time residency. And I think that is relevant. Maybe we can do this as two separate votes. Leave that to someone else's discretion. But I think that element is relevant as I feel like we're moving toward a vote on the 1 year piece, whether we want to have that discussion or make those two separate pieces.
All right, Liz.
I just also wanted to bring up, there is in the same section, no one's talked about it yet, but this is where it says a mayor or council member shall hold within the city government no other public office or employment, which I thought was mentioned earlier.
It's on the list to look at the, like
Okay.
other elected office. Yeah, I didn't.
Is that in 2.2 as well?
Yes,
Yeah, I think so.
it is. That's the only reason I bring it up now. If we're gonna make a motion for 2.2, I thought maybe we should put that in there. My question on that was just, why is it limited to city government? Should it be broader than that?
I think that's the proposal that's come
Yeah,
forward
okay.
from 3 council members and a couple,
I've got one out there.
a couple committee
Okay.
members to expand that to sort of all other elected
Yeah.
offices.
That makes sense. Okay. And I agree with Randy too. Sorry to totally change the topic on you. I agree. I put remains permanent resident. That was something that seems like an important add as well.
Any motion? Anyway,
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we have it consistent 1 year resident, 1 year neighborhood or district, excuse me. I also, in that same motion, believe they need to be not a snowbird or a,
Partial.
partial resident. And
Registered voter?
and a registered voter.
I second.
You want primary versus as of the primary or general election?
A year
It's
before.
currently primary.
I think it's currently general.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
The district, 6 months is the primary.
1 year resident, 1 year
General?
district.
General.
the general election.
Sorry, one more clarification. So for the registered voter, they also have to be, do we want to limit that to a year or just that they are a registered voter when they?
Meet residency requirements?
Yes, because like the one on the 19th, the age thing, so I think it's once, they just have to be a registered voter, not registered voter for a year.
That's what I was just.
Yeah.
We're amending, have registered voter, but no term or time limit on that.
Are we gonna put in there who, did we all, or do we, is it a second motion about like having like who has final authority? Like, And for the people that are.
I'd argue that's a different.
I think it's a.
Yeah, that's a separate.
Trying to
That's not.
clarify the motion before we.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's
Are
a
we
separate.
including the snowbird or are we gonna make a motion with everything and then talk about snowbird?
No, we're
Is that-
including
All in one.
the.
Including
Okay.
snowbird.
So it's
no- no
1 year,
snowbirds.
1 year resident, both city
Full-time
and district.
primary.
Remaining permanent resident, full-time. Like read Ryan's language, basically.
Okay.
Ensure that no snowbird or part-time residency, and
No,
that they should
no
be
part-time residents.
registered
But that's for them to
voter
figure
as of the general election.
Is there a way to check like mail forward?
Yeah, how do you check?
So we got a motion and a second. We got one more comment here, Mason.
Mine is the same thing, though. I think Snowbird needs clarification. I mean, this is not an uncommon thing in our world today. Are they here 6 months, half the year? If they're gone 3 months, what is?
Well, I think
Snowbird?
I think it included that it wasn't just a 6-month resident, right? And a snowbird, if we have to come up with a definition of snowbird, we can certainly have somebody come up with a definition of snowbird.
I think that's what legal does.
We can have staff come
Ask
back with
them
that.
to come up with something.
Yeah, I'll ask.
Ask for staff to clarify how.
Put language in there that is clarifying, so.
Yeah.
I think snowbird's is a slang term anyway. but-
So are we now waiting for them to come back to us with a proposal then?
Once if we pass this, then it'll give direction to city council to come back with proposed language that we can review. Yeah,
Okay.
Which I'd argue after the second, we can add that into the discussion that goes to them.
correct, yeah.
Do we have a second?
We do have a second, yes.
Okay.
So, you have more discussion, Randy?
I like seeing if there is the ability to have more definition on snowbird. I think that we're going to find some challenges with that in the same way that we find challenges defining eligibility. That's why I almost like punting to a judge. And it's certainly like in that situation in the Everett Council race, the county auditor had to do things based on voter registration, which is based on state law, which is much looser in this regard. So that's a challenging topic to get to. I'd plug the one additional note in that snowbird conversation for the attorneys to look at eligibility military service. If someone has, overseas military service, looking at that as a potential exception.
Also, though, for the situation you brought up about, the 19-year-old voter, you can actually register to vote when you're 16. You don't vote until you're 18.
That's true.
But you meet the 1 year requirement, before turning 18. There's that in there. And there's also the, I'm willing to discuss holding office and vacating if there's a situation with the elected official that met all the requirements, is in office, has a situation, we should look at, having a period of time of flexibility, for that council member to, put his stuff together, let's say, once he's in office, because it will create the problem of vacating, and I guess we don't like that a lot. So, I'm willing to discuss, flexibility once he's in office, but that will be a whole separate topic. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Restate it real quick, we vote, or just want to vote?
I'd like to restate it.
Restate the motion, please.
If you want it restated.
No, I'm kidding. It's recorded. So go for it.
Okay, make it consistent, 1 year resident, 1 year in the district, general election, wasn't that right? Coming back from legal with the definition of part-time snowbird, whatever that language is, that they need to be a full-time resident here.
No other elected office.
No other elected office, and a registered voter. Did I get them all?
Are we touching the no other elected office later for a different discussion?
I was gonna say, I think that was a different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I agree.
It's in
but-
2.2.
Yeah, but it is 2.2, so why would we not want to have, I'm leaving it in.
I will rewrite it.
Go ahead, Mason.
And I think in the proposal, we're saying in the city and in the district, and I don't think we need to say in the city, just in the district. Right?
I did hear interest in like simplified language, so I'll make
You
sure
do have
that
interest in that? Did you say that?
I love simplified
Good.
language. I heard it amongst the crowd, and so I will make that clear to the.
But aren't there
legal
some
wrapper.
areas of the districts outside of city limits?
No.
No?
Are we adding the military exception?
Oh,
We're
I
gonna
did like,
draft a way to address like permanent versus part-time residency, and I noted the
exception.
Cases of
exception for
military.
overseas military service. If
And then
there's-
we can tweak based on the language before we
The
vote
proposal.
finally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all in favor of the motion, signify by say aye.
I,
Those opposed?
Sorry, it's the eligibility. I want to clarify.
Can we do
The
that when it
other
comes
options,
back?
we can do that in a
When
different
it comes back,
conversation.
okay. Fantastic.
that's two things today.
All right.
I mean, that we accomplished. Yay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that we've bored Mr. Dürr for an hour, Civil Service Article 8 is next, and Michael Dürr from HR is here to let us know.
Have me sit and plug in. So we're not getting to term limits tonight?
It was not on the agenda.
We approved the agenda.
Oh, I can.
Can I make a motion to amend the agenda and throw it in?
Was it you wanted to?
Well,
I just
because
fumbling through it.
putting stuff up, I think they're trying to push it off, so we can get.
Which one is that?
We'll get.
We better freaking.
Like,
Let's go my notes here.
When is it?
One is for mayor and city council. Is it this one?
let me do
It's on here.
this.
I prepared a speech.
We're this close to hearing.
Can you share it again?
Sure, yeah.
That's review item number 12.
Then
Yeah.
what I want to do is
So item number 12, you're gonna say that you want term limits put on March 31st agenda.
No, the 26th. We're in public
26th is
hearing.
public hearing. and the
We added
31st.
see if that does it.
It'll give you time to add to your speech.
Do my notes.
Oh,
I don't need that.
something like that.
Oh, it's up to
Yeah, that is changing. I can share it if you want.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's
So-
Let's unshare.
It's not just that
Yeah,
one.
like this guy right there. And then I think you have to send it to me.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
One on.
I should just have people. I thought, oh, maybe we can do it this
I don't
way. It'll be
necessarily-
easy.
Limitations.
9 more minutes.
We have 9 minutes left in this meeting.
No pressure.
We're gonna do party.
We can hear a presentation and vote later.
Okay, sending.
Well, you're supposed to be like 10, you said, so we should.
I'll cut this down as quick as I can. How about that? All right.
can start,
And while
I'll
you start
fill in.
talking, I'll talk.
There you go.
All right, so thank you all for taking some time to meet with me tonight. My name is Mike Dewar. I am the HR director for the city of Everett. Been with the city about 17 years, and probably the most important part of this is I got my start here at the city in recruitment. And then after several years of doing that, I was a lead in recruiting, a lot of the promotional processes at the city, and then moved into a leadership role as a chief examiner and now HR director. So that is to say, I got some experience here with our recruitment process. So really what I want to talk a little bit about tonight is the civil service at the city, how it is enshrined in the charter, and just kind of go over with you why it's probably time to look at some changes. The objective here is to ensure that the residents are served by the most qualified employees that we can get here in the city. That is first and foremost with what we're doing. But we also want to do things like remove redundancies in processes, modernize our approaches in hiring and selection, maintaining transparency in how we run our processes, and also make sure that we're aligning whatever sort of recruiting we're doing with what the best practices and expectations are in the community. So just the briefest overview of how we do hiring at the city. You can really classify it into 4 things. Appointive classifications, which are in the charter as essentially management positions, supervisors, managers, directors, your analysts. Those serve at the pleasure of the mayor. You have your civil service positions that are represented. That is to say, they fall under the auspices of the charter's civil service provisions and are also represented by one of 6 labor unions here at the city. Non-civil service represented classifications. These are represented by a union, but have specific carve-outs, either in the charter or by state law,
for example, in the municipal court and the library. And then seasonal help, our summer help that will, help with brush cutting or out at the golf course. Each one of these has different hiring methods. Just a brief history. I'm a history nut by trade, and I've been asked to keep this to one slide. But if you're interested in this, we can talk for hours. In the history of the United States, up through the late 1800s, we had what we called the spoils system. This was dominated by machine politics like Tammany Hall in New York City. This was an era of graft. This was an era of what we call the spoils system or political patronage. It was about who you knew and how you get a government job and not what you knew. This system ended abruptly with the assassination of President Garfield in the late 1800s. You had a disgruntled office seeker who felt he was owed a job because that's how the spoils system worked back then. This, at the federal level, led to the Good Government Act. And like all things in the late 1800s, they called themselves goo-goos. And they also had other supporters in other cities called mugwumps. It's a Northeast Algonquin anti-corruption league, which I just thought was kind of neat. And this percolated into the state and local levels. Everett City Charter Incorporated 1893 established civil service, and we've had a system like this since. That being said, fewer than 10 cities in the state of Washington still retain a wall-to-wall civil service system. You might ask why. RCW 4801 in 1935 for the fire service and RCW 4112 in 1937 for the police service dictated at the state level that we'll have a civil service for police and fire. And this was the most important thing, I think, for voters back then. And while Everett itself has a long, good history of organized labor, it wasn't until the mid-1960s that RCW 4156 came into place, and that is what provided for public bargaining. And so we have this structure here at the city, a charter that establishes a civil service commission, municipal code that establishes kind of these high order rules, and then civil service rules themselves that are maintained by the commission. I won't go too much into the commission's rules. It's things like how much service do you need in order to qualify for a position? What does time in service look like? Those kind of things. But the whole point of this system, and this is a dated quote, but I think its language is dated, but the point is there, that appointments and promotions are made based on merit and fitness without regard to age, sex, race, handicap, religion, or political affiliation. Obviously, the language is dated, but the sentiment is there. So there's four basic components within civil service, and these will be important as I talk a little bit about how these have been almost replaced by other things over time. Classification, and that is to say what the job descriptions look like. Eligibility, and that is to say how do you get a job or how do you get promoted. Process challenges, what happens when somebody feels aggrieved by a process. And disciplinary appeals, or what do you do when somebody is like suspended or proposed terminated. It serves as essentially a backstop for many of our city processes. A couple of things that it's not that you should just be aware of. It has nothing to do with elected officials, has nothing to do with compensation, doesn't determine benefits, doesn't oversee contract administration. So what are the changes to the landscape that's happened in the last 130 odd years? Probably first and foremost is the rise in primacy of the rise in primacy of collective bargaining here in the state of Washington. After RCW 4156 came into place and the establishment of PERC, or the Public Employment Relations Commission, we saw a series of legal changes and court cases that really had civil service programs take a subordinate role to organized labor. Spokane versus civil service, basically the city sued itself over which rules reign supreme. And the courts ruled that it is the bargained contract. And On top of that, we saw things like transparency in the Public Records Act, Open Public Meetings Act, and technology, right? So we have job seekers out there that are expecting rapid contact. When this was written, the best we could manage was a letter in the mail. What people expect now is rapid communication and rapid response. If we don't provide that, then these applicants, the best ones, they're gone. They're working for Marysville, they're working for Linwood, they're working for the school district. And our program, our civil service program, makes it difficult to compete with that. So remember those 4 things I talked about. How have those been supplanted over time? Classification. So every job description we write is negotiated with the applicable labor union. So if we're working on a modified job description for a firefighter, we're going to go to the IAFF and we're going to discuss what that looks like. And by the time it comes to civil service, it's been fully negotiated and they're just stamping it. Eligibility. Well, most cities use a competitive service model. There are still rules in place, but the rules offer a freer hand for a more rapid processing of applications. Process challenges, likewise, it's built into the rules. Disciplinary appeals, well, those are through the grievance process in all of our contracts. And in a worst case scenario, that goes to PERC. The last time, and I had to look this up, the last time we had a disciplinary appeal that went to civil service was back in 2012, just to give you a sense of how infrequent that's used. Let me give you an example of the issue.
Okay,
Piece by piece. All right, this is the problem with Planner, right? This is a process that we're running right now, or it's about midway through. Every city has at least one planner, right? And they're in high demand right now with all the changes that we're seeing in Olympia. So problem with Planner is we have one classification for that. However, planners come in multiple flavors. Right now, we have need for a land use planner and a long range planner. There's any number of other types, environmental planners, we can talk about that as the day goes along. But using our process, we are locked into a 1-year list for whatever type of planner we hire. So we're stuck. And you can imagine with a 1-year list, or 3 in the case of promotionals, our hands are kind of tied with finding the best qualified person. And if we have 2 of them at any given time, like we do now with land use and long range, it becomes very difficult to hire the best we can. So we make do and mend. So we come up with a creative way of getting around that. We go out there and we search for a planner. We search for also an assistant planner. We end up with 2 lists. We pick the one that'll work the best. But is that the most efficient? I don't think so. And this is an opportunity for us to change that. So the language in question, for the most part, lives in Chapter 8, Section 8.3. And you can see this is what provides for civil service across the board here at the city. And what we're proposing is along similar lines here, that we roll that back to just what is essentially required by the state. So rather than wall-to-wall civil service, we become a city just like Linwood, just like Marysville, just like our competitors. And we still respect the rule of law here in Washington when it comes to police and fire. We would still retain the commission, we'd have to, in order to maintain that compliance. But it would give a much freer hand to the bulk of the city, to public works, to parks, to our planning department, and most decidedly to IT. Remember, 1893 was when this was put together. So the state of computing has improved a bit since then. Just a shade. So what are the benefits of doing this, right? Well, for our residents, we have an enhanced effectiveness of our new hires. We are once again able to go out there and get the best we can at the time we need it. We don't have lists that wait around a year. You can imagine if you don't hire somebody immediately, they're gone, but who's left on the list, right? All that's left by once everybody else picks over it. Offers to residents accelerated hiring based on our most modern practices, or at least being on a fighting chance with our neighbors. We retain transparency in process, faster communication. It ensures that we're able to hire those specific positions like we talked about with planner, And ensures that our hiring rosters are always as fresh as they can be. It's basically hiring on demand, which we are, by the rule of the charter, unable to do right now. Also, of course, it provides greater input at our department level. So let's say that, this goes to the voters, that you approve it, moves on to the voters. What do our next steps as a city look like? We would need to first develop what our competitive service looks like. Can't just go off into the world without a solid game plan. And then we'd have to, of course, negotiate the impacts with our labor groups. We'd be ready to do that. And then once we have kind of a good solid beat on what that looks like, we'll take it to the city council to revise some of the EMCs that
The city code.
the city code, yeah, that currently reflects charter-driven civil service wall-to-wall language, and roll that back where appropriate. Then, of course, train staff and roll it out. So I think that's it. That might have gone more than 5 minutes, but I'm happy to entertain any questions you have. Hey, let's go.
First.
My question is probably pretty simple, but when you talk about lists, what do you mean by that?
So when we do a hiring process, we generate what's called a hiring list or an eligibility register. And what that might look like is a list of, say, 10 individuals who through a interview process are deemed qualified to hire. And that list, let's say we got like 10 names for planner. That'd be nice. But 10 names for planner, that becomes who we can hire for the next year or until that list runs out. Does that help?
List of people, list of candidates.
Yeah, list of applicants who are qualified for the job.
How long is the period of time that you have to? Do they
1 year.
Is there an open and closed timeline for creating that list, I guess?
Yeah, so according to the Everett Municipal Code, we need to list things for a minimum of 2 weeks. And then we would close it. We generally do interviews based on that, and then we rank those who pass on that eligibility list. That eligibility list, like I said, lasts 1 year for open competitive processes to the outside. And then for the inside, those are either 2 or 3 year lists, depending on the bargaining group.
But I guess what I'm not confused about is how the names get on the list. I mean, so
yeah.
Does the resume get matched against some sort of criteria that gets them on the list?
Yeah, so every process has a list of minimum qualifications, right? So a planner might have a requirement that they have 3 years of experience in a particular type of planner work, right? We then take the applications we receive for that. They are reviewed by the department. There's usually a panel interview, and then that panel interview is scored. That resulting score is sorted top to bottom with the names, and that generates that list. And then the department would do hiring, usually from the top 5 individuals, based on the number of vacancies.
Yeah. And you made mention a couple of times of contract.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about a labor contract?
Labor agreement, yeah.
Or an employment contract?
No, we don't operate employment contracts. When I speak of contracts, I talk about collective bargaining agreements.
Okay.
Yeah, labor agreements.
Okay, thank you.
Brady?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. One, I'm on the historical commission, so I appreciate you trying to hire more planners because I know their resources are limited. 2, I was just going to sort of share an example. So I've applied for employment at the city of Spokane before, and so I've gone through this process. Kind of. I was 17th on the list, so I kind of took that as, it's probably not going to be the opportunity for me. But it's a very strange experience as an applicant because you'll then get follow-up notices about your eligibility to stay on that list. So I was getting those, to your point, kind of like 1 or 2 years later as someone who was already employed somewhere else. So I just wanted to sort of observe, it's one of those things where in this case, if you're this wall-to-wall was your term, charter city or civil service, it's a very strange human resources experience compared to not just the private sector, but other governments that don't sort of tie themselves to this process. So I'm glad that you brought it to our attention.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Just really quick, I'm just making sure I'm clarifying, but you're still recommending civil service for police and fire?
It would be required by state law,
Because I
yes.
understand how that, okay.
Yes.
Just, yeah.
Randy?
That's those two RCW references, yeah.
Which labor groups would be impacted and have they provided any feedback on this?
No, impacted labor groups would be AFSCME, which is, kind of our, everyone from the office folks to our public works crews. ATU would be impacted by that. That's our transit operators. And crafts, that'd be the smallest of the unions. That's our, like electrical inspectors. Yeah, we will, of course, be negotiating anything that comes out of this. Yeah.
Does this suffice with the RCW 41.08 and 41.12, or does it have to say 41.8 and 41.12 plus any changes in state law or new adaptations, or do you have to come back again and get those numbers changed?
Yeah, we would probably we'd want to run through legal.
Right.
But it might be 4108. That language has been in there since the 30s. And there have been some discussions, but never any movement about, whether that is still accurate or appropriate for state law. Kind of want to leave it as open-ended as we can, because the state law was to, withdraw that. We might consider, rolling back civil service even further. When you consider how competitive the police hiring processes are right now, any advantage we can get would be welcome. Any disadvantage we put on ourselves would be unwelcome. Yeah.
Deb?
In the interest of time, I'll just say really quickly, I'm comfortable with the first part of it and taking out of all employees except day laborers, I'm comfortable with removing that language. I'm not comfortable with removing the for open competitive examination as to fitness for eligibility list. So I'll just say for that part, I would want us to have more discussion.
Last one, Grant.
Yeah, I was just hoping, because I have zero idea, I have zero experience with how hiring processes within a government offices or things go. Is there anybody here who could quickly give me kind of a synopsis of what it looks like now versus what it would look like? I loved what Brady brought up, something similar to that. Can somebody give me what it did look like, what it would look like now?
I could run through how it operates, if that's helpful.
Yeah, something similar like Brady. Brady was very efficient.
Why don't we bring that back?
You could even,
yeah.
we can talk about it.
Yeah, everybody got to be somewhere.
Give me an email.
Yeah, then we probably go.
Sherry, can you just tell me on the side?
I would be happy to have
Thank
worked
you.
in law enforcement and sat on that side and on the civilian side, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And I went through both of these working here for the city, so.
Okay, if somebody could just give me, because I'm it's all foreign to me.
All right, we ran out of time a while ago, but thank you, Stuart, for coming in and giving us the highlights, and your suggestion was very powerful for me. I really appreciate that part. So we have something to work with.
Happy to be here.
We will bring this back at the next meeting as our first topic before we go on to what we didn't get to for today's agenda and bring it up for discussion.
So we were going to bring it back on the 31st.
31st, yes. Next meeting is our public hearing. Yeah.
And
We could talk about bringing Michael back by email.
But can we please, I really would like to get term limits and those things moved up first on the agenda next time. So if we're gonna bring him back and we're gonna discuss those things, I'd like to put after some of the other
new
things.
business sort of first.
Yes, well, things that we're, we're charter members, and these are things being brought to us from the city, and now we've wasted we've used 4 meetings on things that are topics that have not been brought by us. And so I would like to start the next meeting with stuff that's been brought by us.
Good point. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Vote aye. Thank you very much.
outside